Universities. Let's talk about how they make money. The first and most obvious source of revenue for universities is their tuitions and fees. Private schools heavily rely on the fees and tuition, while public schools are subsidized by the government, and that's why public schools and state schools are typically cheaper than private schools. Furthermore, international and out of state students typically pay more than their in state counterparts, which further boosts the university's tuition revenue. The next major source of revenue for universities is through their research and grants. For large research institutions, this is a major source of revenue provided by the government and private companies for professors to do research, and the universities take a cut. Example of government agencies that can provide such grants include the NIH, the NSF, the DoD, and private companies. They can be like Amazon, IBM, and Pfizer. The third major source of revenue for universities comes from endowments. Big private universities such as Harvard and Stanford have massive endowments, aka in the billions. Typically, the money in these endowments are invested, and only the interest on these investments are used to fund scholarships for students and new buildings. How universities acquire endowments is usually through their wealthy alumni network. Next, we have the auxiliary services. These are basically just the mini businesses that are on campus, such as the dining halls, bookstores, and fitness centers that makes revenue from students or visitors using their services on campus. Sports programs is another example of such service that can also bring in huge revenue for such universities. Finally, we have online certificate programs which universities offer, aiming to attract working professionals, which are less of an administrative burden for them to set up, and they can charge these programs a fortune. I know we have talked a lot about how universities generate revenue, but what are some of the costs associated with operating a business like a university? There are several obvious ones, such as first, we have the salaries for the faculty and administration. Second, we have the cost to build and operate facilities such as labs, dorms, and fitness centers. Third, we have student services such as advising, career centers, and mental health clinics. Next, we have financial aid to help low income students. And then we have marketing to get more students interested in attending their university. And technology infrastructure. Yes, software is not free. In fact, it's very expensive. Finally, we have the research costs associated with having graduate student stipends. I want to circle back to endowments since this is probably where the finances of the universities is the most interesting, because universities has such large endowments. As we said earlier, Harvard and Stanford's endowments are in the billions, approximately 50 billion at the time of this recording. How do these universities acquire endowments, you might ask? Well, they can acquire it from their alumni donations, fundraising departments, investment returns, and compound interest. Universities have such a large amount of capital in their endowments that they don't need to just throw money at the S&P 500. They can use more sophisticated approaches to generate returns that surpass the S&P 500, such as private equity investments, public equities, hedge funds, real estate, venture capital, fixed income investments, and they may even keep some cash. With this fully diversified investment, they can potentially generate returns that outperform the S&P 500, and basically, this is all under the control of some asset managers that oversee everything. Typically, universities only use the interests on their investment portfolios instead of the principal themselves to continue to fund scholarships for students, research, and expansion, because at the end of the day, universities themselves are still a business.